Hey y'all, how's it going? It's Sway, and I know I haven't been here for a little bit, but you may have seen me here. Or maybe here.
Hi, I'm Sway, and today we are joined by Sloot.
Or maybe even here.
Is it a drain eye?
That's terrifying.
I like it.
I like it too, a lot.
Suffice to say, we've been pretty busy around here, but I decided maybe it's time I record my first deck guide. Picture this. You are logging into Hearthstone, the Great Dark Beyond has just come out, and you're like, I would like to make a mage list. So you log in, right? You go to the deck builder, you select mage, and then the third pre-built list says Swaybay's Fiery Elementals. I'm making this video so that you can feel comfortable piloting the list that I made for the game. I'd like to take a really quick moment to thank the Hearthstone team for inviting me to do this. There were so many amazing creators invited. Really, it was such an honor. I am so blown away and it still doesn't even feel real. Also, thank you for watching this. I hope you find it helpful and I hope that my list takes you to legend. All that being said, let's get going. So in those very first clips that we saw really quickly, I was there with Sloot. Sloot and I participated in Tavern training together, which if you don't know what that is, it was a promotion that happened in end of June into end of July. Basically, 8 Hearthstone pros got paired with 8 Hearthstone trainees. Sloot was my trainee, and Sloot comes from a WoW raiding background. Over several streams, we did some coaching where I kind of taught Sloot the basics of the game and how to pilot lists. And at the end of it, there was a tournament in which we won. Now we fast forward to September, where we are looking at the brand new cards from the Great Dark Beyond and creating our own list to go in the game. I was given Mage, and even though Tsunami and Big Spell Mage is very, very relevant, I was really intrigued by the idea of making the Lamplighter based list just even better with the new stuff. You can see me play the list I created against Sloot's list in the YouTube video on the Hearthstone site, which I will link in the description below. But I'm gonna talk you through the basics of the list right now. We're also going to talk through some Wincons, and I have some receipts from Theory Crafting so I can show you how exactly they work. I'd also like to make a note, because this is my very first deck guide, that whenever I talk about Hearthstone, my goal is to increase understanding of the game and how it works. So this is more of a breakdown of my choices and why I included things in the list to help you pilot it as well as possible. I also feel like this might be a pretty approachable deck list, as it is only 3,120 dust, I believe. It's mostly common cards with 3 double rares and then 1 legendary. So literally half the dust goes into the 1 legendary. If you have any questions, just leave them in the comments and I'd love to help as much as I can. And yeah, thanks for checking this out. So let's start with the basics here. This is a very low curve list. What does that mean? That means most of the cards are a lower mana value. Our highest value card is Saruun, and that's at 6 mana. Everything else is below that, most of it living between 1 and 4 mana. And there's ways that you don't even actually have to pay 6 mana for Saruun. Like you can use the Aqua Archivist and with the coin even get it out at 3 mana, which we will get into all of those specifics in a little bit, but you could You don't really have to wait very long to play Saruun. Now, when it comes to building a list, you need to have a Wincon, right? A win conditional. So there's a couple win conditionals in this list, specifically looking at the Lamplighter, which we are familiar with from previous expansions. If you're not, we'll get into it. And the Saruun, which is the brand new legendary, which gives your elementals in your deck +1 fire damage. Notably, every spell included in this list is a fire spell. My favorite part about this list, and what I really kept in mind, is adaptability. If you're playing a heavily aggressive list, an aggro list, you are going to probably be pushing a lot of damage up front, but you could potentially run out of resources pretty quickly, and when you do, you're kind of out of luck. On the other hand, you have kind of heavier, clunkier, higher mana lists where, yeah, you have these things that are lower curve as well, but you may not get them out fast enough or in time to not be completely demolished by an aggressive list. I tried to live in the middle ground of like tempo, whatever that really means, right? But I tried to live in the tempo ground where you can contest an aggro list and also really deliver damage against a control list. So what's important here? Well, depending on your opponent, you may take a more aggressive or less aggressive attempt at your mulligan. I hope I'm not over-explaining here, but I'd rather have more information than less, and your mulligan is what you choose in your starting hand. You can choose to discard something or keep it, and then after you discard your things, it's all up to fate. So when you see what class your opponent is, of course you don't know exactly what they're running, but you might have a good idea based on what is meta relevant, meaning what other people that you've experienced playing that class are also playing. It's not a surefire bet, but you know, meta is meta for a reason, right? Like a lot of people play a certain class, so they play a certain deck within the class. Sometimes there's 3 or 4 different variations, but it usually follows some similar rules, and after the first several turns, you should know or at least have a general idea of what to expect. That is the biggest thing in Hearthstone, is not just knowing what you are doing, but also being able to anticipate what your opponents are doing. So let's pretend my opponent is playing a certain class that makes me feel like I need to be a little bit more aggressive. Off the bat, if my mulligan hand does not contain both Aqua Archivist and Saruun and a coin, that's not in my mind right now. Honestly, if you're going second and you get both Aqua Archivist and Saruun, congratulations, you probably win the game. That's very presumptuous. Hold on, let me backtrack. What I'm looking for is Firefly. Firefly is the 1 mana that is giving you an elemental on the board, also giving you an elemental in hand, which means you have a follow-up for turn 2. Firefly will never not be good in your starting hand, period. They're just little guys. All right, I'm saying a lot of things right now. That's kind of the hard part about Hearthstone, though, is a lot's conditional. And speaking of the Archivist, actually, I would really never get rid of that either. It adds value because it makes things cost less, which is very, very helpful. In talking about maintaining the board, we have cards like Solar Flare, which costs less for each elemental you control. So yeah, it's 5 mana, but do you ever actually pay 5 mana for it? Well, I sure hope you don't. And as just a little note here, because we're talking about Solar Flare, keep in mind Solar Flare says enemies, including enemy hero. So not just enemy minions. But controlling the board is not the priority here. It is pushing damage face and keeping elemental chain going. There are going to be very, very few situations where breaking that chain is something that happens, but not always, actually mostly not. While we're talking about it, actually, let's take a look at this game that happened with Sloot when we were building these lists.
That hurts. You can stop whenever you would like to stop.
I just don't think I want to.
Yeah.
That's unfortunate.
Okay. You're just going for it?
Okay.
There's no way you don't have 4 damage in hand.
Right. So okay.
Entertain me.
Okay, unfortunately, right. There's nothing I can do. I can't win. I can't. I just can't.
I'm squelching you. Lamplighter. Could you have done that? Did you have that previous turn too?
Yeah, but I didn't have enough mana. Yep.
So you can see that the correct play was to go ahead and stop the elemental chain. And it did kind of delay the win, but it was what I needed to do. All right, let's take a peek at some games from Theory Crafting and exactly how they work with this list. In this game we're about to see, I did have an Archivist in my opening hand. No Saruun, but Saruun did show up at a pretty perfect time. And I was able to really get that Saruun board going and just push damage hard against a control list. Let's take a peek. I could justify keeping this, but I could also justify keeping this, but then like I'm definitely not playing anything on turn 1. Which is not a good thing. I think we toss it all. Toss it all, start all over again. Okay, I like this much better. If I play this on turn 3, then I can Saruun. I'm gonna play the Flame Elemental followed by the Archivist so I can play Saruun on 4. That's sick! I wish the Surger was still in hand.
I am the flaming heart of the universe.
It's so cute.
I'll blast you out of orbit. Prominent blast.
We all exist in harmony.
Oh, they didn't discount it. Ooh. Ouch, they weren't able to discount it. Bummer, bummer.
Planet is nothing but fuel. Flybar, prominent blast.
This is so sick. What a heckin' snowball. It's turn 6. Okay. All right. Now we can switch decks. That was very satisfying. So you could see how beautiful the curve was, the Archivist into the Saruun. And then after that, I already had Blasteroid and Accretion prepared. So Blasteroid first into Accretion gave me some really nice opportunity to throw some fire spells into the deck and then pull them right back out to go ahead and deliver a lethal. Blasteroid is definitely one of the best cards in this list, for sure. We have another really fun Wincon from Theory Crafting, and this one, Overflow Surger is a trip. So if you play Saruun, and then you play your Overflow Surger that came from your deck, all of a sudden your whole board is filled with extra fire damage. That means all your fire spells are that much more valuable. It's crazy. You gotta check this out. I don't think this is it. This is not it. In fact, all of these are not it. Those are also not it. Oh no. All right. Can we have one of our little one-drop guys? I'm gonna have to tempo out the Flame Revenant. I do not want to do that. Oh, sick. Thank you. Let's go. Oh. Saruun. I think I'd tempo this out either way. Yeah. If I trade this, then I just lose my Flame Revenant, but then that's like net 0, but then they still have the button. So like I could play the Accretion, or I could just get something else on the board. And I kind of like that. Because it doesn't break the elemental chain.
I'll blast you out of orbit. In the great dark beyond, there is still light.
Ooh. Yeah, let's use some draw here.
Nothing but fuel.
Clock is ticking.
Okay.
Our souls are scattered across the universe.
In the great dark beyond, there is
Okay, that's pretty sick. I need to play an elemental. Okay, Librams costs less. I can't be toe. I know I needed to do Saruun, but I also felt like I needed to like stay on top of it.
To perfection.
I felt like I was like falling behind and I did not want to. Now I feel comfortable playing Saruun because I feel like I have the upper hand here a little bit. But also, Saruun on curve here is... Saruun's not on curve here, which is kind of weird. I just don't want to draw into any more of my deck. But now we have like plenty of draw. The Accretion and Eat the Imp.
Ready for wrangling.
Oh, zero cost Librams is kind of crazy.
Are scattered across the universe.
Oh, sick. Lovely, lovely, amazing.
Clock is ticking.
Prominent flare.
Okay. Oh. Oh, we're starting with the fire damage.
Ready for wrangling.
Okay. That's so expensive. I'm gonna burn something if I do this. I mean, I can start with like... Oh, heck. I didn't read it. Didn't read the card. All right, I guess this is not.
And I will bring destruction.
What? I haven't seen this yet. This is the 100 mana card. What is a weapon they're using? It's an Interstellar Star Slicer. Reduce the cost of your Librams by 1 this game with a battle cry and death rattle for the weapon. It stacks. Each of them gets. Oh my gosh, that's crazy. That's crazy. Oh my gosh, I am so obsessed. That's crazy! I didn't get to play Saruun, and it's a copy. It's a copy with fire damage. That's crazy. I mean, I think past twice said it all. I have nothing to add. But if you're able to do this combo, you definitely should, 100% would do it again every single time. Okay, now that we've seen some receipts and know that this works, let's talk about each of the individual cards in the list and what it does. I'm also going to be giving each of the cards a rating out of 10 to give you an idea of how important each card is to the objective of the list. So right down here, I've created a key for each of the individual things that I'm considering each card for, which comes to maintaining the elemental chain, the Saruun value, which is kind of a gray area. We'll talk about it with each individual card. The deck generation. So for longer games, when you need to have some generation in your deck, draw, which is so important to make sure that you're able to draw into your deck and you don't run out of cards in your hand. Board control or board presence. So basically just making sure you have stuff to play, and just kind of making sure that you're keeping your opponent in check. Next is damage, of course, for doing damage to your opponent. And we have some cards that are specifically setup cards, which we will get more into as we approach those cards. Our very first card is the Firefly. This is a 1-mana Firefly, and it is a 9 out of 10 for me. So this is an incredibly important card just to have a really good launching point for your game. The first several turns are important for establishing just having things on your board. So Firefly, 9 out of 10. Important to start your elemental chain. And also, if it doesn't start in your hand, it is important as well for Saruun value, because I kind of mentioned this earlier. Saruun giving each of those minions the fire damage +1, having to pay only 1 mana to get this on the board and get that extra fire damage is so good. So definitely a 9 out of 10 because it is useful whether it's in your deck at the start of the game or in your hand, preferably in your hand. Next is the Flame Geyser. And I wrote 5 out of 10, but I'm actually right in this moment going to change it to a 6 out of 10, and I'll tell you why. I think that it is helpful because it doesn't just damage minions, it can damage face. So you can push Flame Geyser face. It is like a little bit less valuable in the way of not being able to contribute to Saruun in Saruun value, but it is helpful for elemental chain. So say you don't start with a Firefly on turn 1, but you do have a Flame Geyser, that means that you are able to get an elemental down on turn 2 at least and start your chain there. Next up is the Aqua Archivist, and I'm going to give this a 7 out of 10 as important. This is important for 2 reasons. 1, it is good to continue the elemental chain. Great for a turn 2 play out, but not quite because of the setup that it also has. So here's one of our setup cards. This is very, very interesting because the next elemental you play is 2 less, right? So the cost of the Archivist, however, it doesn't have to be that turn. So you saw in one of my previous games that we looked at earlier, I played the Archivist on turn 3 to then play Saruun on turn 4. Being able to set up that turn was super key and very, very helpful. So I had some weird mana turns, but it ended up working out very well. Next on our list is the Flame Revenant. This is a 5 out of 10 for me. It's great to continue the elemental chain and also really fantastic for board control. You can combo it with the Overflow Surger, very useful. You can also use it for like the Rolling Stone, or just to get a little bit more health and attack on your elementals, make them a little bit more of a problem to remove. In that way, it's good for the elemental chain. But if you play the Archivist on turn 3 into a Flame Revenant into a Overflow Surger on turn 4, pretty hard to remove. You're gonna cause some issues for your opponent for sure. Next is the Rolling Stone. This is 4 out of 10 for me. It is a low cost elemental to continue your elemental chain, and it's also good for some board control and board presence, so you're able to trade it off. So you can, if for some reason your opponent is doing too much and you're saying like, hey, stop doing so much, Rolling Stone can maybe take care of a minion for you. But it's not essential, and I'm pretty sure most of this list is like 2 drops, so if you need to swap that one out, it's not the worst one too. The Rush is nice though. The Rush is very, very nice. Next is a Shale Spider. This is going to be a 6 out of 10 for me, and it does require you to continue the elemental chain, but it itself also continues the elemental chain, which is nice. More importantly than that, it helps you continue to draw into your deck. So this card being dually useful in the way of being an elemental to help the elemental chain and also to draw into your deck, it's valuable, definitely valuable. Our next card is the Spontaneous Combustion. This is one of our new ones, and I'm gonna give it a 4 out of 10. It is specifically and only damage. This is a damage spell, right? A fire spell. It does do 4 damage, and you do get to pick who gets the 4 damage if you played an elemental last turn. If you didn't play an elemental the turn before, it's not a big deal because it does still do 4 damage. You just don't get to pick where it goes, but it does help to keep the elemental chain going, so you can target face if you want to. It's also a low cost spell, so using it with additional fire damage is so nice. And you can, of course, also target your enemy, not just minions. Next is another new card. This is the Blasteroid, and I'm giving this an 8 out of 10. Very valuable. It's valuable for multiple reasons. One being the deck generation, right? So this is the only card in this list that's valuable for this reason. So if you're in a situation where you're playing against a control list and you need to continue to play the game and slowly whittle away at them, it does help you just throw a little bit more stuff in your deck so you're not so worried about fatiguing out or running out of resources. Additionally, it's some great Saruun value. After you play Saruun, then you can use your Blasteroid to throw some spells in your deck, get that extra damage. And it is a great setup card for then the next minion here, which is Blazing Accretion. Blazing Accretion is also an 8 out of 10 for me. Pretty heckin' important. This one gets the setup category as well because it between the Blasteroid and the Accretion, you have a fantastic amount of resources to be able to throw at your opponent with Saruun value. This one has the most different kinds of value attached to it. It's got the setup, it's got the Saruun value, it's got the damage from the spells, and of course it's got the draw, which means that the 3 things that you're drawing from your deck is so very helpful. If you only have this card and one other potentially in your hand and you use this, all of a sudden you have 3 new resources now. And it's really not that expensive for what it gives you. Man, after saying all that, I kind of want to bump it up to 9 out of 10. It's a good card. Next up is Molten Rune, and outside of our legendary, this is the only card that I included one of. The Molten Rune is a fire spell, and it does have the forge aspect of doing a little bit of board control. So if for some reason you are finding your opponent to be way too strong, they gotta stop it again, you use your Molten Rune. I'm giving this card a 3 out of 10 in terms of importance. The primary reason of inclusion was a fire spell that does kind of help maintain some board control or just, damage in general. And it can be replaced pretty easily with another fire spell or elemental if necessary. All right, next is the only card that is a 10 out of 10 in this list is the Lamplighter. Lamplighter is here to do damage. Lamplighter is not here for board control. If you are using Lamplighter for board control, you are in a very scary place. So be aware of that when you use your Lamplighter. Also, if you are starting your turn with Lamplighter, potentially you could play, if you have a 1 or 2 cost elemental that you can fit into your mana budget that turn, I would start with that so you get just that 1 extra 1 damage on your Lamplighter. It's such a good card. It's so good and it's so useful. If you have a bunch of taunts in your way, you can still send it face and just deliver that damage and end the game. It's such a good card. Very, very important. If you need to cut anything from this list, I would not cut the Lamplighters personally. Next up is the Overflow Surger. This is an 8 out of 10 for importance for me. As we saw previously, there is Saruun value. Oh, there is Saruun value. But if there's not and you're just playing it on curve, there's fantastic board control value there as well. Just make sure you continue those elemental chains so you can get as much value from the Surger as possible. Next is the Unchained Gladiator. This is an 8 out of 10 and it's specifically for draw. Of course, it continues your elemental just like the Shale Spider did, but this one needs draw. Say you're in that situation again where you are running out of resources, but you play several elemental the turn before and all of a sudden Unchained Gladiator has refilled your hand and you are good to go. This is a very, very useful card as well as a good body on the board. Next is Solar Flare. This is an 8 out of 10 in terms of importance for me. This specifically is so good for board control. I am hopeful that you will never play Solar Flare for 5 mana because it does discount for each elemental you control. So hopefully your elementals are not consistently getting removed. And if you're facing some kind of wide token board, Solar Flare is there for you. And it does do damage to all enemies, including the hero as well. So it's so fantastic. And it can deliver that final blow, as I think we saw earlier as well. Next is one you unfortunately can't discount outside of Archivist, is the Tainted Remnant. That being said, that is a butthead on turn 3, I'll tell you. Whew. Tainted Remnant on 3 after playing Archivist on 2 does so much damage. It does 7 damage to probably their face because the game just started. And a 7/4 body on the board. Oh, continues the elemental chain. I can't say enough good things about it. That being said, it is a 6 out of 10 for me because it is expensive. You have to wait until 5 mana? 5? Yes. But it is a lot. It's a lot of damage. It's really worth it. But if you need to cut something, it's okay. But it's great. I was really back and forth. It is a really good card, but it is a 6 out of 10. And our last card is Saruun. Saruun is our brand new legendary. And I feel like I've said Saruun like 1,000,000,001 times in this video, but definitely a key point of the deck. It is a 9 out of 10 because I didn't want to put it as a 10 out of 10 because it is a legendary. So I didn't want to make it unachievable. And I believe actually the entire time that Sloot and I played our lists, never once was I able to get Saruun down. Like I never drew into it. And I was really sad because I was so excited to see it in play. So, you know, it's not necessary to make the list work, but it is so very helpful and does some pretty crazy things when you get it down. Therefore, 9 out of 10, not 10 out of 10. I don't like to make things necessary that are like the legendaries that are the costly things to do. But Saruun, of course, gives you Saruun value. Oh my goodness. Of course it does. And in addition, it also is a nice setup for the rest of your game. So I was kind of talking about win conditions earlier, and we're going to revisit that right now. Our win conditions revolve around Lamplighter and Saruun. In Lamplighter, our win condition kind of, you're hoping to just deliver the final blow with Lamplighter, right? You're hoping that you can slowly whittle away at their face until they don't have a lot of health left, and then Lamplighter finishes the job. Where with Saruun, you're kind of hoping to get it down early. So then after you play Saruun, which is your setup card, you then have a bunch of minions that have extra damage and you have a ton of spells that you can play, and then you do all of the work of sending everything you can out. So in those ways, they do function a little bit differently. And depending on what your opponents are doing, it will function differently that way as well. Given the fact that I have only played this list in theory crafting as well as while I was making the list, I unfortunately can't speak to specific builds from other classes, so that will be a follow-up video. But I hope this was helpful overall in understanding how to play the list, what's important, what's not. And I'm happy to answer any questions. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments. Please let me know if you try my list. I'm so excited about it, and I'm so grateful for the opportunity. Thank you so much for being here. Thanks for checking it out. Happy to be back on YouTube, and I'll see you all later. Thanks for watching. Bye, everyone.